Anytime you have these spikes in inventory, like more properties coming on the market in a specific area, you're going to have more opportunities for buyers, more selection, and less competition, really.
Let's get into specific parts of the city and kind of break it down so people can see exactly what's happening.
Yeah. No, it was shocking to see those sales. Like, we were thinking about it. Even semi-detached properties in New Sudbury were selling between $4 and $4.25.
Welcome to the T&T Real Estate Podcast, where we spark conversations that set you up for real estate success. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Tanya. And each week we bring you expert tips on navigating Northern Ontario's real estate market. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, we've got the tools to help you thrive. Welcome back to the T&T Podcast, and welcome to our new digs at Trey Studio. Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for the revamped look. I love it. It's so comfy.
Yeah. So, I mean, they never put their logos or anything in our podcast, but I mean, we've been shooting with Trey Studios for what we think is over a year now. We were just talking before we started that it's definitely been over a year. We just got to figure out how long it's been. But they've expanded their studios. They moved not very far away from their old office or their old studio, but these digs are, way more comfortable. And we appreciate the guys at Trey Studios.
Super comfortable. Yeah. And it keeps us accountable. It keeps us coming to film in studio. Yeah. So we appreciate that. Absolutely. So speaking of year anniversaries, I actually was hosting an open house a couple of weeks ago, and somebody came through who watches our podcast. So thank you so much for watching or listening to us. And one of the things that they said that they really enjoyed was hearing us talk about trends and stats and kind of what's happening on the market. Right. So I think it's important for us to look sort of year over year. So now we are towards the end of November 2025. And I think it's nice to reflect on November 2024 and kind of where we've been in the last year. So some of the trends that have happened.
Mm-hmm. So are you dedicating this podcast to that person that came through your open house?
Dedicated, yes. All right, to our faithful listeners.
I like that. Yes. I like that. Good.
Absolutely.
So where are we? Where are we in
2025? So what's interesting is we were talking about this before, is we were talking about kind of like anecdotally, how does the market feel? Mm. How do our agents feel? How do our buyers and sellers feel? And I think generally people feel that it's been a little bit of a slower year, actually, and a little bit of a downturn, maybe in the market. Yeah. But I don't think that's what the stats say. No.
And I feel like it really depends who you talk to. And I mean, when you talk to other agents from really across the country, everybody is actually in a downturn year, and they're in a buyer's market, and it's much more difficult for sellers to sell and to move on. But Sudbury is obviously very insulated. It always has been. So we are protected from those. We're not going to get the besides COVID years, we're not going to get the 30% appreciation, but we're also not going to get the 30% falls either, which I think is a nice, makes Sudbury a nice place to invest and live, because you don't really have to worry about, huge crashes, let's say. But yeah, I feel like you're right. And even in the last month or two, I feel like the fall market, started early-ish and ended even quicker. Usually it lasts till middle of November, and then it starts to taper off for Christmas. But I feel like it was
slowing
almost
down a little sooner now, or
like end of October it was kind of slow. Obviously a little bit slower than what it was. So I felt it come to a halt a little bit quicker than usual, which I thought was surprising. Yeah, but then when we look at the stats. Maybe it's not that way.
I think there's still a little bit of a push for people who want to get in kind of before Christmas, or there certainly has been the last couple of weeks. Maybe now that we're at the end of November, people are settling down and thinking, January, February is the time to plan. But definitely, I was surprised even just, last week I had clients, making that decision to jump into a much more expensive property as, their family had expanded and they were looking for something and they were willing to move before Christmas. So that was quite surprising, because this is like the busiest time of the year for most families, especially families with older kids, people coming and going, and there's so much demand on them that most people just want to say, forget it, I'm going to wait till the new year. Right. But when the right property comes up, it's... You jump on it and you're ready to make the sale. So one of the things that was kind of interesting when we looked at the stats from November 2024 to November 2025 was actually like the highest sale price was one of the big discrepancies. And so whenever you have like a very large or a much lower sort of average sale price, there's sometimes a few anomalies in there that kind of skew things, right? So that's why we sort of look at the median. And last year, our highest sale price was actually for single family was 1.8 million. And this year in 2025, November, it was actually 3.2. So like almost double.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like anything over even 2 million, it's like it can happen a couple times a year. So it just like so happens that the 3.2 fell in November. Yeah. But it's a huge difference.
Yeah. So that could skew kind of the average sale price, but that's why we like to look more so, I think, at the median sale price.
Right.
Yeah. So we're looking at the stats. We see the average price went up slightly from about 510 to 515 from November 2024 to 2025. But then the median actually dropped. So the median went from 461,000 to about $455,000.
And I mean, for anybody wondering why, one would go up and one would drop, like the average takes into account all of the sales and then, add them all together, divide by how many. So it would mean like that 3.2 obviously shot that average price up a little bit, where the median this is what most of the houses are selling for. So most of the houses are selling at 455,000, but the average, because there are a couple monstrosities that sold, brings the average price up.
Yeah. And we saw a little bit of higher sales volume November 2025. So it went from about 60 million to 67.5.
67, yeah. So an extra $7.5 million bucks.
Yeah. So it's not just one house. It's a couple houses there that are driving that volume up.
Yeah. So there are more houses selling for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into specific parts of the city and kind of break it down so people can see exactly what's happening. Because when you look at the whole of the city, obviously we just said that median prices have been down, but when we start getting into like the nitty gritty into like different pockets of the city, that might start changing. But New Sudbury.
Your favorite?
My
New Sudbury?
Favorite. It's God's country because I live there. I'm super surprised by these stats. So typically, I mean, and I feel like we saw that all year. Like the typical house, the brick bungalow that we always talk about, sells for about $500,000. If it's not like extremely updated, the average run of the mill, it's livable, will sell for $500,000. November, that average had dipped to 420,000 in November, which means, and we saw a few sales that hit the matrix, the system, the hot sheets, and I'm like, wow, that was like a steal of a deal. It would sell, a full house would sell under 400,000. If any of those people that bought those houses are listening, you got a great deal.
Yeah. No, it was shocking to see those sales. Like we were thinking about it, even semi-detached properties in New Sudbury were selling between 4 and 425.
Right.
So to see the fully detached houses selling for like low prices,
I was super surprised.
That's shocking.
Yeah. And I think, like, do you think that might have been like a cooling off period, or do you think that was just like an anomaly in the market that was just like November, for whatever reason, was a great time to buy New Sudbury?
I think it was an anomaly. I think, perhaps there were a few, not speaking specifically about other agents' marketing tactics, but I suspect people were listing low.
Right.
Listing $399.
Okay.
Thinking they were going to get a bidding war because that's kind of how it's always been done, right?
Right.
And in a couple cases, it didn't work. It didn't work. It wasn't a good marketing strategy. And the seller said, oh, well, this is our only offer here. We might as well take it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an anomaly. I don't think that investors are shying away from New Sudbury anytime soon. It's a great place to invest. The homes are solid. They're brick. They're nice neighborhoods, close to everything, good schools, good shopping. Well, for what Sudbury has, sorry. But yeah, I don't think anything is going to drop, drastically in New Sudbury. I think it was probably just a few anomalies, and that's probably why it happened.
And I feel like, especially the beginning of October in New Sudbury was absolutely crazy, where like this average prices were, I would say, probably over 500.
Yep.
So I feel like it's almost like everybody just bought in October. They got everything out of the way before, before winter, before Christmas, and then November was kind of just like stagnant with buyers in the pool. Is what my hypothesis
and maybe
is.
people are just taking more time to make decisions and deciding where
Right.
they're going to move to, where they're going to buy their first home, where they're going to invest. So there could be some people just kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting. But
Right.
yeah, it was interesting to see that trend.
And one thing that impacts, how many houses are selling and what the average price is would be inventory. So we had a couple big peaks, especially in New Sudbury this year. April, there was 58 new listings in April. And like for people that know New Sudbury, it's like not that big of a place. So to have 60 new listings is pretty impressive. But to trump that, September, 71 new listings just in New Sudbury. So I feel like that kind of was the precursor to like the craziness in October, where lots of people maybe that they were looking for something that they hadn't been seeing before, and so they decided to pick out a couple of those 71 new listings, and then it kind of just left this kind of stagnant listings in November that not everybody was that into. So, which, I mean, it could have affected what people were buying as well.
Yeah. And anytime you have these spikes in inventory, like more properties coming on the market in a specific area, you're going to have more opportunities for buyers, more selection, and less competition, really. So what that's going to do is that's going to drive the price down. And also it's going to take a little longer for the other properties to sell. Like you're mentioning, people are going to select those top properties that are their first picks. And then a few others are going to kind of sit by the wayside for a couple of more days. But a couple of days could be like 30 more days. We're seeing at the beginning of the year, the days on market, or the average days on market for New Sudbury was between 7 to 20 days approximately. And then we saw it spike in November to 38 days on market.
Right.
So that's a considerable amount of time to sell a home. I mean, that's normal in any normal market, but it's a big change to go from the spring where it was maybe a week to 2 weeks to all of a sudden, more than a month to sell a property.
Yeah. I had a couple listings that I was like, how come these are not, these should have been sold like a week ago. What is going on? We ended up getting them all sold, thank God. But yeah, it was a little bit hairy. And I would call around to other agents in the area that had other listings, and everybody was kind of in the same boat. They would get, showings dropped off drastically. It was just, it was.
There was just a bit of
hesitation,
hesitation, I think, in the market at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but now things are definitely moving a little bit more
moving
as they would, seasonally for it being November.
Right.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to my God's country. So the South End / hospital area. I like to lump those two areas together because I think a lot of people looking in one area will look in the other as well. Yep. The South End pretty much maintained a pretty consistent median price between $550 to $665. Yep. Consistent sales count were about 30 to 40 or so a month. And however, it seems that, as well, anecdotally, that things were selling faster at the beginning of the year than certainly they are at the tail end of the year here. Mm-hmm. Days on market has definitely gone up, but certainly the sale price in the areas tend to be upward of the mid 500s, so 550 to 600 or so. Yeah,
I was going to say it's hard to find anything in the South End under 500 specifically, but even under 6 would be a little bit more difficult unless you're getting like a kind of a fixer-upper property. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, the South End, obviously you get the upper echelon. You have the Moonglow area, which is very expensive. You have, the wine streets, I call them.
Tuscany, Tuscany Trail and all that?
And so you have like a lot of newer subdivisions that they demand higher prices, which is why the South End is the most expensive area to live in. Yeah. But yeah, I'm a little bit surprised to see that it was selling a little bit faster. But I guess when you're thinking about the overall with those higher, 800 and over houses, I mean, it just takes longer to sell because there's not as many people that can afford them. So it does make sense for sure.
We sort of saw this year, it seemed that there was this like middle part of the market that was having a hard time selling. Right. And it was those homes that were maybe around 600,000, say maybe 6 to 650. Yep. It's not a first-time home buyer's home, that's for sure. But maybe it wasn't big enough for somebody to move up into. And then we saw the 750 pluses just moving,
right?
Like having no problem selling whatsoever.
Yeah.
Usually bigger homes, maybe they're a little bit more dated because they were built in the 90s or something, but certainly they offer that space so someone can make the decision to move into. So it was funny, even the South End, I think we did see a few of those pockets that were having a hard time selling in that sort of $600,000 range. But certainly, like you said, anything in the lower fives would go, because that's perfect entry level home for that area.
Yeah, for sure.
And now neither of us is God's country,
Somebody's
but
God's country.
A very, very hot market this year, 2025.
God, yeah, it was.
The valley has been moving so consistently, and it seems like it's always on fire. You can list a home in the valley and it's sold tomorrow.
Right. And I feel like it's been trending that way for a couple of years, but this year was just unbelievable. The amount of sales and prices in the valley was something for sure.
The prices tend to stay pretty steady. You know, we're looking at about $450 to say $550 for medians throughout the year.
Right.
Had a very strong activity in the spring and summer. We saw that this spring was crazy as bananas. And I think some of that was to do with, obviously there's some new construction happening there,
Right.
but there's a lot of movement because I think seniors, this is kind of my anecdotal look at it, I think seniors have a place to live now. There's some nice developments happening. There's some nice apartments or rentals with little garages that seniors are moving into, and they're able to sell their family homes.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, there's a bunch of contractors right now that are doing really great jobs building, senior complexes. So I feel like they are getting kind of away from like the high-rise seniors complex, and they're building these, not even slab on grade, but on grade with garages. They're a little bit bougie,
like a community.
Yeah, and I find, I mean, the wait lists speak for themselves on these developments, but yeah, they look really nice, and I feel like that's kind of what was missing in the market. So kudos to those developers, I guess.
Yeah. And it's keeping the valley moving pretty consistently, which is nice. It's a great place for first-time home buyers to get into the market.
Right.
And I think there's, some really nice schools. Schools are amalgamating. There's more development happening there. So it's a great place to invest. And so do you think, Tyler, that anything is going to change in 2026 in the valley?
I don't see it. Like, it's trending on, it's on the train, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere for the next, couple of years. I think it's going to be strong. I think the prices are going to continue to increase. Unless something drastic happens in the valley, I think it's going to be a nice stable place to buy and sell.
Yeah, it's probably one of the better areas for people to move to and invest and sort of grow and start out, right? There's just so much more space, and there's great new developments and also great amenities.
Yeah, and I think of all the streets that kind of surround the valley, Hanmer, and you can get like, 5-acre estates with, pretty grand homes, and you have space to do whatever you want. So I think those are, some of the sales that are increasing property prices as well.
Yeah. It'll be fun for us to look. I think December, we should do another podcast and look at the whole year and trends. And did we do predictions?
Yeah,
I think we did predictions for 2025. So let's go back and see if we were in any way close to what we thought was going to happen in 2025.
That's right.
And maybe get ready for our 2026.
Yeah. You want to talk about volatility in the market a little bit?
Yeah. What is volatile?
So Walden. The Lively area. I feel like Lively is one of those places I feel that are always in demand, but it just depends what's in the demand at that month. And I feel like the stats kind of back me up with this. There was one month, January 2025, the median price was $270,000, which is odd. But then you go to the highest median price of July. So $553,000. So it's almost a doubling of the median price. But I feel like because there's so few sales, if you're selling in like the Bonnie Drive area, that's going to increase.
That's going to drive it up.
That's going to drive it up. But if you're selling on like any of the numbered streets, then it's going to drive it down a little bit.
Even then, looking at it like $270 for January.
Yeah.
Even if there was 2 sales. Can you find a house in Lively now for $270 or less?
There must have been.
I don't think that you can.
No, There's no way.
It must have been like a small semi or something, maybe something that needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
One or two anomalies that were low priced.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can hardly find anything under $300,000 in Lively.
Right.
Yeah, it's always a very sought after area, but like you said, it's hit or miss in terms of what's available and where the prices are going.
Yeah. So why do you think, like, what is your opinion on why it's a little bit volatile in Lively?
I maybe it's more seasonal than the other areas,
Fair,
right? Yeah, because like you said, the higher end properties like Bonnie Drive in that area, certainly some of them can be in the high 800s. You know, we've seen some over $1 million even. Right. And those people are going to position their homes on the market at the best time to sell, which is going to be like May or June, you know, and that's just going to happen. But other people who want to sell because of life change or something happens, right? Just because they need to sell or want to sell, those homes are going to be priced a little bit more in the sort of lower end price range. Yeah. So it's probably a lot more seasonally affected and then affected just by the fact that there's so few sales that happen in that area.
Yeah, agreed for sure. And I feel like, I mean, the stats say that there's only, I mean, any given month, there's anywhere from 9 houses on the market to 17, or sorry, 9 houses on the market, around the highest was 17 sales. So, I mean, it's, when you have 17 sales and you have, you know, a couple big ones, a couple of small ones, it's kind of
going to skew it. Yeah. But
right.
I've always found that people who are looking in the South End who maybe are priced out of it or feel it's just a little unattainable, or maybe the taxes are a little scary for them, they will often choose Lively and Walden area as their backup. So I think Walden has still a lot of, you know, a good future ahead of it and a lot of stability to come. It's just a smaller market.
For sure.
Maybe with a bit more volatility.
Yeah.
Okay, Tyler. So let's look now to the future. Okay, we saw a couple of rate cuts happen this year in 2025.
Right.
There's more rate cuts anticipated in 2026. We never know really what's going to happen, right? But that's certainly what most predictions are saying. What part of Sudbury do you think is going to catch fire next year in 2026?
I think, I mean, based off these stats, I like the easy answer is New Sudbury, because there's obviously going to be more sales than what happened in November. But I feel like if we like generic, like look at the whole year, I feel like New Sudbury is already pretty hot. So I think the area to look out for would be like Nickel Center, would be Garson, Coniston, Wanapate. I feel like it almost underperformed this year, but I feel like there's always, you know, really good deals. Like when you're looking at them, I'm like, okay, this one, if this was anywhere else, this would have sold for, you know, $50,000 more. So I feel like if people are looking for a decent house for a decent price, I feel like those areas should be on the watch list.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I would maybe agree with that. If you're looking for sort of a suburban lifestyle, I think maybe people are looking a little bit more for suburban and getting outside the city. But I think the West End is going to, like Gatchel, West End, sort of like, what do they call it? Like New Britain, Little Britain. I think that area is going to do really well because I think there's still a big desire to be in the urban core. I think that the new development downtown with the new arena and everything is going to start to entice people to be living in proximity to that. Right. So that's what I think. I'm hoping it'll be more sort of downtown West End, and that people are going to start putting a lot of pride into their areas that they live in, and that, you know, we always want to kind of stay away from gentrification and pricing people out of their neighborhoods. Right. But it's just nice to see a little bit more pride and investment put into those areas and see those areas thrive.
For sure.
Okay, so that's a wrap on November 2025. Stay tuned for December. We're going to be doing our yearly wrap-up and predictions for 2026.
Thanks for tuning in to the T&T Real Estate Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share with others looking to succeed in real estate.
We'll catch you next time with more tips and strategies for navigating Northern Ontario's #1 real estate market. Until then, stay ahead in real estate.